Good morning, KNS. It is Saturday, December 13th. I'm your host, Bud Wiry, and you're in the shop. So it's official, guys. The Republicans, who control everything in this state, have lost the redistricting fight to make our maps go to a 9-0 versus the 7-2 that they had been. So what they were trying to do, as most people know that have been following along, they were trying to redistrict in a way to where several counties took a little piece out of Indianapolis. That way we could get rid of the different ones. And then up there in the Gary area, they were trying to take pieces of those. That way we would have a full Republican map. And they, in theory, they were saying it was possible. I was saying by as hard as they were disenfranchising communities, it was unlikely that they'd be able to pull that off anyway. But it's been just an epic failure for the Braun administration. It comes down to showing you how disliked they really are. And guys, what it was happened here. So, the Republicans, we did really good in this last election. Braun comes in. But what they've done with their power, as we've talked about before, is they've kind of came in and just kept attacking the community and attacking the voters. And the people are fed up with it. I mean, you can look it up, and I find it staggering that if you start looking at, like, on the Facebook at how many different groups there are to fight these data centers and the wind and the solar and all these different big government developments they have going on. I mean, it's really shocking to see how much of an effort this is. And these guys, they're either so dishonest or they're so stuck in their own world that they can't even see the light from the trees. They're oblivious to the fact that they are causing all of their own problems. And then it makes me also start to wonder, it's like, is this, as I've bandied around before, is this an intentional something that's going on? And then it's like, okay, so what got us to here to where we have a state full of RINOs and we have a weak-kneed governor that, can't get any of them to come together. They just openly ignore him. I mean, it's really shameful for him. And I'm guessing for Mike Braun's political career, this was the equivalent of a full-blown suicide in that regard. But like I was saying, so how do you get to where we are now? And then you start looking that a lot of these people that have gotten to where they are now have went through our very own local Gentry machine, the Market Red. So you got Market Red, which is Mike Gentry, was pretty much the owner, founder of it. And then he has Matt Gentry as a partner. And then they also have Josh Kelly as a partner, which is, some of you more political savvy know, Josh Kelly has now moved on. And I don't know if he's still a partner in Market Red, but he's definitely now the chief of staff for Mike Braun. And so you go all the way back and you look. So that Market Red, back in the 2018 fight, got Mike Braun installed as a senator. And then now, come around after his term as a senator, they've fought again. I think it was a couple 100,000 that I seen on paper that the Braun camp paid the Gentrys, and now they got him in as the governor. But if you look at and this is also weird, so the Market Red webpage has now been archived to where you can't see it. So I think they're trying to hide some of their connections and stuff by archiving the website. But there's a little piece of it that we all had saved, and you can see on it where Mike Gentry had talked about in there how they helped engineer the Republican takeover of Indiana. And it leaves me to wonder, like, you guys might have engineered putting politicians in all these spots, but they aren't Republicans, because we never see none of that around. And even locally in the Lebanon Matt Gentry administration, we have all kinds of very liberal people in there, people that get in there and fight for liberal causes, people that argue with me because they're fighting, for the pervert shows that they had going on downtown there for a while, and the Heart of Lebanon was advertising it. You got them in there. They just won that fight. So some of his very liberal colleagues in there that run the Heart of Lebanon, which taxpayers pretty much fund, they've actually now pushed that door. So we were talking about it a little while back, and I'll come back to that, but that's where everybody gets the outside drink. But so we have a lot of these very liberal people inside of his administration right now, and that seems to be a theme. So it's got me thinking, is how is it that our weak-kneed governor and all of these other people that seem to be just horrible rhinos across our state have all came to be put into this position. And then when you have Mike Gentry claiming in his own stuff there on the Market Red page that he helped engineer, getting all these Republicans in and the Republican takeover, it makes me start to wonder if they're not a crux of this rhino installation in our state. And guys, it's going to bite us in the ass real good now, because you got to look where we were really at, and that's why all this redistricting has come up, is because there's a lot of competitive fights that are going to be out there. The Democrats are kind of energized, and we need every bit that we can get so that we can hold the House. Because if we don't hold the House, it's going to be a whole nother mess like it was last time, where they impeach Trump every other day for whatever trumped up something they got going on. And what this is doing, and in this loss, and I mean, it was horrible. It was like 31-19 or something that they lost this vote, even though Republicans control the Indiana Senate. But that's what it is. How is it that we have so many of these rhinos, and then you got one of the giant rhino pipelines right here in Boone County that has talked about how they helped engineer all of it? So, guys, when we're looking around and we look around the things that are happening locally, and we say, hey, this doesn't really align with our classic conservative values that it's been. I mean, a lot of this stuff can be chased back to the Gentrys, or some of these people that the Gentrys have kept in positions of power. And, you got like the Kruliks, that Missy Krulik, she runs the Heart of Lebanon. She was the one that was fighting to advertise for the drag shows and stuff that were up there happening off of the square. And, I was posted up screenshots of it. She was the one that was there posting and, fighting for, to have drinking up there on the square now, to where everybody can kind of walk around, which, guys, it wasn't my hill to die on necessarily, because I really think to myself, that one's going to shake itself out, and it's going to show its own true colors. I know that they get up there and they're like, well, over there in Zionsville, we don't have these problems. Well, Zionsville has a medium income of $175,000 a year, to where Lebanon has a medium income of like $65,000 a year. And I know, and it doesn't make them better people by any means, but these people around here are my folks, and I know that they will, they just get a little more rowdy. They look to save a little more money. That's why the poll that I had up on the Lebanon Chatter group about how many of these people would be willing to refill their Dora cup out of the coolers out of their car, it's like 83% of people said that they'd be willing to do it. Why? Because these people are economical. They don't have so much surplus funds that they're going to go pay $7.50 for each beer. If they can offset that a little, and I ain't even mad at them, that's good business right there. I mean, if you can go back to your car, and I talked about that, I posted about that, and then Gentry, even Matt, he addressed it in one of the meetings about how that would be illegal, because they're watching what we got going on here at the shop, so they already knew that poll was happening. They seen that information. They seen how many people put it out that way, and it was pretty entertaining. I mean, like I said, that they won that. It was I think it was everybody voted yes for it, except in the city council, except for Sandra Jasianowski, which, good on her for actually standing to it. All these other guys were sitting there going, well, in Zionsville and Noblesville, they don't have any of these problems. But if you actually looking for people that did actual real research, and just, instead of just going to uppity communities and say it was all right, the problems with Doras tend to get more problematic and more rural, lower income communities, because that's what you get, a lot more people that might be a little harder drinker. Maybe they have problems with that stuff. Maybe, they're willing to go out in their car and, juice it up. But, all those things are going to come to pass. There's going to be pictures and videos coming in of, incidents that happen up there on the square. And that's like a lot of these communities too, that say it doesn't cause a problem. That's just because nobody's reporting on it. And, because a lot of the communities, they have their media locked down to where they only report the things they want them to report. I mean, you could have an incident that happened on the square, and the Lebanon Reporter wouldn't report about it. It'd all just get ignored and washed away. But now with the information systems that we have, somebody's going to take pictures of this event. They're going to ship them out to me, and then I'm going to put them out there for the whole community to see, because we're not operating on that same old where they all get to hide all this stuff, for now and forever. So, it's really, it's kind of sets you back when you start to look at it. You're like, okay, so we got the local mayor and his family business over here have helped install these rhinos that are really just, really hurting our communities. And it's going to have a detrimental effect going into the midterms, possibly, that might ultimately give the Democrats the upper hand. And we might lose all the wind that's been behind our sails since the election of Trump. And then, so you got that liberalization of these communities going on in that way, to where, oh, they just openly snub the Republican stuff we got going on. Then you have the liberalization of our communities locally. And it's kind of weird when you chase it all back and you're like, well, these people are all very incestuous. Because, I mean, how is it that you have the market red Josh Kelly that was involved in all this, and now he's Gentry's chief of staff? And it all starts to make sense why it's all happening. But, it kind of sets you back that all of this is coming back to our little community here. And that our little community here, which has been a very reliable red area, is contributing to all of these problems that are harming Indiana across it. Because all over the media today. I mean, we've seen Trump talking about it. We've seen J.D. Vance talking about it. I mean, this sent shockwaves through the Republican community, that Indiana, having complete control in Republicans, completely took a dive on this. And that's what it is. And they're able to do it because Braun's so unpopular. So these other rhinos in other areas, even though Braun openly says he supports it and, says he's for it, nobody believes that. Nobody really cares. There's going to be no penalties from Braun. All of these people know they can snub him either way because the people don't like him. I mean, all across the community, like I said, we were talking up there, you got all these groups that have formed to fight what they have going on. So it's been an absolute crap show. It's going to harm a lot of Indiana people. And it's got a lot of people. The only good side that might come out of it is right now we have a lot of bigger Republicans on the bigger stage talking about coming into Indiana and doing a little rhino hunting. And I'll tell you what, I give them a couple targets to start with. So, all right, so we're going to pull off of that because I went a little long on that piece. And I want to go into the saga that's going down with our whole assessor and all of the IT. So they've been trying to price out these contracts for IT. And the assessor presented one, which was almost $1 million a year. The commissioners, pressed this other company to put a bid in. They got their bid in on time and everything else. And they're coming in way cheaper. We're talking about 690,000 or whatever I figured up last time difference in between these two contracts. So, and that kind of became a big fight. I posted a video of how the assessor was looking for legal counsel so she could potentially sue the commissioners. And, so then I start looking into this to do my due diligence, because that was like my initial volley with it. I'd heard some rumblings about it before. But, I mean, this was really getting into a heated thing, and I see all the emotions involved and everything. So, right now we have been using the Guts company. And there's something else about this Guts company. I got to looking back at some of my old paperwork, and Commissioner Jeff Wolf actually got campaign donations from this. And I'm going to get into that some more. I don't want to overshoot my shot there, but I did see on some of the paperwork there that there was $1,000 campaign contribution to Jeff Wolf from this company. But they've been in there for like 18 years, and nobody's been pricing them out. Nobody's been, trying to keep them honest, so to speak. So, I mean, I was really excited to see that the commissioners push for another bid. I give Pell commendations for, making these extra efforts. And he said he called close to 20 different communities that use this other company. And then this other company is Nexus. That's the one that came in with this other bid. But then I also get to looking, and I seen that there's down there in Monroe County, there is a whistleblower, and they've got all kinds of problems with their assessment. And they use this Nexus company, and they've almost $1 billion more in assessed values on things. And you don't know, it's like, is it the company that is helping to cause that? Is it the people inside the office? And I actually talked to the whistleblower down there, and they pretty much recommended to stay away from Nexus because from their standpoint, they're all connected. They all have these problems. But then that individual also thought at the same time that the guts bid was on the high side as well. So this has kind of been going down this hole. And I think where we're at now, and I've talked to a couple people about it, and the assessor at the last meeting actually recommended this. And I think this is really the way forward on this, because I don't want to see anybody make a quick decision that ends up costing the taxpayers of our county a whole lot of money. So I think, and I agree with our current assessor, Jennifer Lasley, and others that I've talked to about this, that I think the way forward is to see if we can't get a 1-year contract, because the way this was set up, it was for a 4-year contract. But if we can get a 1-year contract with the guts to let us actually get a new FRP, because nobody even knows who made this last one. It's just been going around, and it's kind of, and you can't blame Lasley for all of it, because I think she only got elected in 23, so she ain't been in the job as the head of it for that long. But so you just get caught in doing the same thing that everybody's been doing. But I think the right answer, especially now that we got all the eyes on it, and during the council meeting, Aaron Williams, he asked a lot of questions about this, and I really appreciate that. All this extra light and all this extra questions, this is what we need, guys. This is what we need to actually move the ball forward as a team, because now that everybody's actually engaging on the topic, we're, like I said, if we can get a 1-year contract with guts to kind of kick this ball down the road, allow everybody to write up a new FRP, try to get multiple bids out there. I think there's about 7 different companies in our state that do this kind of work. And then everybody actually get together to try to move forward with the best option. But you got to know what it is. You can't have a vendor that you've had in here for 18 years without price shopping them out. And, I think Lasley had told Councilman Williams there at one time that they couldn't be replaced because of how much knowledge they had. But now she's saying that there is a possibility they could in-house some of it. And we need to come up with the right combination of people and outside services to make this work. And we don't need to do it by fighting. And that's what bothered me about the last county commissioners meeting, where they're talking about legal and suing the county and doing this and the other, because all that screams to me is all this is going to cost us even more money. And I don't want to see it cost us more money. I want to see us get down the road to the next hill, to where we're actually like, okay, now we're to something to where everybody's feeling more comfortable and the people are getting a better deal. And that's really what we need to do. So I hope that's what they end up doing. And we're going to talk about that more as it goes, because like I said, there was a lot of fire right in there. And, once you start looking at like, okay, I don't necessarily want to jump to this Nexus company. I don't necessarily like what the guts prices look like right now. But we have all this outdated information, and the right answer is to just kind of stay in our lane for a minute with what we got, and then try to push forward, get a better deal, get more people involved. And I think it is, and I think that's where we're at. And I am really liking seeing how many more people are addressing this, because it went from nobody really knowing what was going on here to now it's an actual topic. Now all these different people are engaging. So, all right, we got that. I got to kind of move on from this. But, I was kind of trying to update, because I've posted some of these things about that, and I haven't really given my latest update since I watched the last council meeting. But hopefully that's the direction we're heading. So, up next, we have, December 17th, we have the Area Planning Commission meeting, where we've had a lot of good people in this community that have been working on the new wind, solar energy ordinances for our county, for the unincorporated part of the county. And so they've put together something, and from everything that I've seen for it, it looks really good. There's a lot of things in there to help protect the community members, and this effort has my full support. So I actually wrote an email to the commissioners and to the APC in my support of this stuff, because it's like, all right, guys, we need these extra protections for our area. This is prime farm ground. This is this, because I think it, and something else that I attached onto my email, I think there's 150,000 acres of previously industrialized land in Indiana that could be used for this sort of purpose. So you can't make it so easy for these people to come in and just mow over perfectly good prime farm ground, instead of, because we want to encourage some of these areas that have already been previously developed to once again be serving that purpose. So I encourage everybody, please come out December 17th, 7 p.m. at the Western Boone High School. There's going to be a big meeting about this stuff. Please engage. I can tell you guys right now that I know for a fact these companies are coming into these communities. They're talking to your neighbors without you even knowing about it, and they're trying to make plans to get these different things. And if you don't want, I tell you, I went up north not too long ago. You don't want a giant wind farm around here. We went up north past Lafayette to the Brookston one, and there was literally windmills as far as the eye could see. And all them blades are moving at different speeds and everything. It made me and the wife both sick to our stomachs. And so you don't want that. And we don't want these solar panels to be just choosing prime farm ground over some of these other available areas just because it's cheap. It's always going to be a cheap option for these companies to come in and take prime, fresh, flat farm ground. That's always going to be a good option for them money wise. And if they can do that for the same price. So we need to make it to where it's not as easy for them to come in. We need to have more protections for the people of the community, because these people in this community did not sign up to live in industrial areas. If we all wanted to live in an industrial area, there was plenty of them out there we could have moved to instead of choosing this place to raise our family. And some of us have been here for generations. Some of us have been here for lifetimes. And the people here do not want to be covered with this. And that's why everybody has such a hard time with the LEAP developments and all that, because, that just slammed on top of people. The people didn't get a vote for it. There's a small handful of people that could fit in my palm that made all these decisions and harmed all these people. And now, that stuff about Eagle Creek Reservoir, getting all that water taken out of it, that story is not going away. I just posted another one to the shop page yesterday. People are very mad, and honestly, and that's another thing that I've talked about before, the Democrats have complete control over that. There are ways right now that they could try to put efforts in to slow or possibly even halt these water withdrawals from the Eagle Creek Reservoir. If they want to come out there and say they're against it and say they do it different, well, the opportunity is there for them right now, because that ball is completely in their court where it's coming out of the reservoir there. But these are all these different harms. There's almost 500 properties they're going through. They're damaging stuff. I drove my family through some of the path the other day and showed them some of the trees and some of the harm it was going to do. This stuff is real. To these people, and they're never getting that back. It's not like, oh, we're going to cut down their tree line and then they can regrow it. You can't even regrow trees on the same area. And some of these tree lines are the cover for their whole property. Some of it leaves so little property up to their house that there is nothing that they could put there. It completely just takes up their whole front yard or their whole side yard. And some of them 300-year-old trees, giant trees, and all the things that are just getting ripped up. And these things are by force. So, they're going through there and they're not even trying to give them ample time to, challenge how much citizens is willing to pay them for the easement, because they're pushing it so fast. They got to get water here 2027. And Meta, it looks like over there, looks like they're setting up for a portable batch plant. And we got all this stuff going on, guys, and the water's a real worry. And, I've posted it to the shop page before, and I will do it again. The name and number of the people that come out to measure your well and test it for its quality, because, we all got to stay on that. If they're going to start pumping million gallons a day so they can start making mud, then, it says from what I've read that can affect other people's wells up to 3 to 5 miles because it creates like almost a funnel shaped pattern out of the ground as they sit there and drain it down. And we already know these people don't care nothing about the folks around here. I posted a video the other day of how Meta over there leaves their lights on all day long. I mean, it's snow on the ground, blinding bright. Have to wear sunglasses, and they have every light on out there. And that's just who they are. They don't care. They come in this area, you know. And this is kind of a fun fact here. So Meta, because they're dirtbag people and they really don't care about the community. If you actually don't allow them to sign all these NDAs and do everything, they would have pulled out. The only reason we have Meta right here, right now, is because we have government officials that care so little about the community that they were willing to put approvals in place while NDAs stand, and the people didn't get to know the full scope of, how much energy they're using, how much water they're using, how much pollution they're making, all these different things, because it just got reported out of Alabama. There was a community up there, and they really pushed on them and said, no, we are not going to sign this paperwork while we have all these NDAs in place and our community don't get to know all the facts. And that Meta pulled out of the development. So they only really even want to be somewhere where the community and the local politicians will let them hide stuff. So, okay, I'm running out the clock here, so I'm going to move on to something that the politicians can't hide, and that's the smell coming out of Zionsville. So, all right, guys, so of those that have been on the shop page and read the report, I shared an article from the WIBC where they're talking about the sewage crisis in Zionsville. And the guys, this is another, it's a symptom of their overdevelopment without really taking everything into place that's required, because they have a septic system and a sewage system over there in Zionsville that was built in 1956, back when the village had 2,000 people. And now, they've had a bunch of upgrades over the years and, Band-Aids put on it, but that community's pushing close to 30,000 folks. So now we're having big problems. There's been stink. There's been smells in the community. There's been several large bypasses, and all that stuff's going back into their drinking water over there. They had one. It was 25,000 gallons of their forced main that broke, and it made it all the way to the Starkey Branch Creek. And if you look at any of the water maps around there, it don't matter which one you really get into. They're all going down into the Eagle Creek watershed that ends up being everybody's water. And I'm telling you guys, you don't want to look at how little these waste treatment plants can get out. And you don't want to, yeah, because trust me, all that sewage goes in there, it washes down, they pump it out, they do a quick treat on it, and then they send it into your guys' homes. And it's nothing you really want to, it's not great all the time, but I'm sure that there's spikes after they have events like that don't exactly get recorded. So that's a big thing they got going on. They got a couple different ways they're looking at going about it, but one says for a $21.5 million expansion, but they say it's gonna not last that long. And then there's another version they got that might be more scalable as it increase. And then there's some talk that maybe they're just trying to run out the clock because citizens they sell the water wholesale to Zionsville much in the same way they did to Whitestown, and we all know that Whitestown just sold citizens their whole water infrastructure. So there's some amount of thought process that maybe these people have been kicking it down the can, hoping that they end up getting to sell their utilities and their all that stuff to citizens so that it will then be on somebody else's thing. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there, but I always like to end on, kind of the lighter side of things before we go on into the rest of Saturday. But guys, for those that have lived around here for a long time and it's came up for debate more than once, it is now 100% without a fact that some of them uppity folks over there Zionsville way, their poo does stink. So with that, guys, you have a great rest of your Saturday. I'll see you next week.